Located in the scenic Presidio of San Francisco, the Walt Disney Family Museum brings to life the fascinating achievements and inspiring story of Walt Disney. Co-founded by Walt Disney's daughter, Diane Disney Miller, and grandson Walter E.D. Miller, the museum is owned and operated by the Walt Disney Family Foundation. In a former U.S. Army barracks, which was renovated by renowned architect David Rockwell, this 40,000 square foot museum tells the story of the man behind the myth through Walt Disney's own voice.
The day I got on that California Limited, I just was free and happy, you know. It was in 1923, but I failed. I think it's important to have a good failure with it, you know.
And interactive galleries featuring historic materials and artifacts, early drawings and animations, movies, music, state-of-the-art technologies, listening stations, more than 200 video screens, and much more. Hi everybody, today we're here at the Walt Disney Family Museum with Annelle Muller. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Now I heard something that this is about the third happiest place on earth.
Well, according to Tom Hanks, it is.
Okay, well, let's go with that.
All right.
And then today, we're going to have an abbreviated version of this amazing tour.
Yes, it's like the 10-cent tour.
The 10-cent tour?
10-cent tour.
But you look like $1 million though, so what can I say?
Thanks.
Yeah, well, actually, you know, there is a lot you can see here, and you can spend a long time here, right?
Yeah, on average, our visitors tend to be here between 2.5 to 3 hours.
Okay, so we're going to kind of condense this down and show us the high points, get them excited so they can come here themselves, right?
Yes. So we're going to start here in the lobby.
Sure.
And this lobby represents, well, it has examples of a lot of the awards that Walt won over his lifetime. In his lifetime, he won over 900 awards.
Wow.
This space only has 248 of them. And of course, you know, when people come here, the case that they are most enthralled with is that case with those little golden guys.
The gold guys, yeah.
Walt Disney remains the person to have won the most Academy Awards to date.
Wow.
With 32. And he also has the most nominations to date with
That's
59.
amazing, because he deserves it.
Yeah, well, you know.
Of course, he's pretty good.
Pretty good at his job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the last piece, which a lot of people are very excited about, is this furniture, which actually was in the Disneyland department.
Right, above Main Street,
firehouse.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. He used to stay there, right?
He would, and it was a great place to bring his grandkids, and you know, it was their weekend home. That's what they did. The lamp is always the one piece I always mention, because when he was there, the light would always be on,
right? And
people knew boss is here. And after he passed away, the light remains on to symbolize that his spirit is always present.
That's incredible, yeah. So a lot of this is like screens, interactive type of situation. How does it work?
Well, it depends. Every gallery is different, and every gallery is really built to you know, communicate the time period and what's going on.
Right.
So in this gallery, it's, you know, older, more turn of the century.
Sure.
Walt was born on December 5th, 1901.
Okay.
So that's where you start.
All right, that's
But it'll
good.
go all the way through till he goes to France during World War I. So when Walt came back from France, he didn't go back to live in Chicago with his family, who was living there at the time. Instead, he decided to go to Kansas City. And when he was there, he got a job at the Kansas City Film Ad. And that's the first time he discovered animation.
Okay.
And
that's what this is kind of dedicated to, right?
Pretty much, yeah. He, you know, when he started, it's funny, people think that he just started drawing animation, you know, traditional 2D, but in fact, he started with stop motion. And that inspired him to find an easier way to animate, way to animate. And so he just started experimenting, and we have videos.
Yeah, there's some of the artifacts over there of how he placed the camera and did his own systems to make it more efficient, right?
And he used his family as the guinea pigs, and he made them try out all kinds of...
I saw the broken milk bottle technique over there.
Yes, yes,
Pretty cool.
And so he just started working on that and doing some work on his own, and he got confident enough that he branched out on his own and started his own company, Laugh-O-Grams.
Okay.
And they did some updated fairy tales, and you can see some of those in here. Cinderella, Puss in Boots, those kinds of films. And unfortunately for him, his distributor went bankrupt before he paid him the money he owed him. So Walt went bankrupt as well. So his first company was a failure.
Well, a lot of times people have failures before they have success.
Yes.
Just keep going, right?
And it worked out. And it worked out for him because his brother Roy, his older brother Roy, was in Hollywood and said, you know what, just come out here, buy a ticket and come to Hollywood.
Right on.
That's
nice
what
to have
he did.
connections. Hollywood land before the land fell off. Right now it's Hollywood, right?
Yeah, so Walt gets here in 1923 with $40 in his pocket, a mismatched shirt, jacket, and pants, and a cardboard suitcase filled mostly of art supplies. But with him, he brings reels of this experiment he shot before Laugh-O-Grams went bankrupt, and it's called Alice's Wonderland. And the whole premise behind it is taking a live action figure and putting her into an animated environment. And he gets a bite from the woman who distributes Felix, the cat.
Felix the cat, yeah.
And that's the woman right behind you.
Here, this lady here?
Nice portrait right there of Margaret Winkler.
Okay.
And she agrees. She says, you know what, this is great, let's do it. And so she gives him the contract to distribute the Alice comedies, and he gets to work. The first thing he does, of course, is write a letter to the little girl mom to bring her out. The little girl's only 5.
Which is Alice.
Yes.
Little girl
her
Alice.
Real name is Virginia Davis.
Okay.
And so this is that letter. And that letter is considered to be the beginning of the Disney company, essentially. Declaration of Independence, if you will, for the Disney company. And she comes out and they start making the Alice comedies.
Walt Disney, cartoonist.
And so they'll make, you know, many Alice comedies, over 50 of them. So towards the end of the run of the Alice comedies, Margaret Winkler gets married, and back in those days, when you got married, the husband took over the family business. So much to Walt's, so much to Walt's dismay, this man Charles Mintz takes over, and him and Walt don't have the same kind of relationship. It's really contentious. But either way, after the Alice comedies are done, Charles Mintz finds out that Universal Studios is looking for a cartoon based on a rabbit. And he approaches Walt and one of his lead animators, Ub Iwerks, to present something, and they respond with Oswald the Lucky
Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. That was his first big deal, right? I mean,
well, it's the first, you know, completely animated success, and it's a success. People love it. It does really well. In the middle of all this, Walt also gets married to his first secretary and an inker at the studio, and she always comments, Lillian Bounds always comment that she knew Walt liked her because he would oftentimes drive all the young ladies home after work and always leave her for last, even though her house was the closest to the studio.
He wasn't that sly, was he?
So they get married, and you know, Walt's very happy. His brother gets married right around the same time. And he finally decides, you know what, I need a raise. It's time for a raise. I've been working so hard and we've been doing so well. And so he boards a train with his young wife to head out to New York to meet with Charles Mintz. And when he gets there, Charles Mintz basically tells him, I'm sorry, but you're not gonna get a raise, and you'll take a 20% pay cut. You don't own the rights to Oswald, and basically I've bought all your animators and you have nothing.
Wow.
And so Walt is completely dismayed.
Strike 2.
Yeah, Walt is completely dismayed, and he gets back on the train, heading back to California, trying to find a way to tell his brother Roy what's happened. And on that fateful trip, he gets an idea for something different. And he thinks, a mouse, I can do something with a mouse. And he tells his young wife, what about Mortimer Mouse? And she's like, And so after a discussion, they settle on Mickey Mouse.
And there it was.
And there it was.
And then the rest is kind of history after that point, isn't it?
Well,
yeah.
I have to show you something, something really special. So this is considered to be the earliest known drawing of Mickey Mouse. We can't say it's the first because we're not absolutely positive, but when we acquired it, it was all folded up as if someone put it in their coat pocket, drew it and put it in their coat pocket. What we think, the best story that we can come up with for this piece is that when Walt got back from that meeting in New York, he sat down and had a secret meeting with his brother Roy, Les Clark, a young animator, and Ub Iwerks, and presented the idea, and this is the drawing that came out of it. And you'll notice from the drawing that right in the beginning, Minnie Mouse is already part of it. So, you know, Mickey was never by himself. He always had his partner. So basically they decide, okay, let's do it. Let's start working on Mickey Mouse, but they do it in secret because they're still under contract to Charles Mintz. Okay. And so they start working on it, and they basically start developing 3 cartoons at the same time. Steamboat Willie, Plain Crazy, and Gallopin' Gaucho. And the first one that was going to be released is Plain Crazy. However, when they go to the theater owners, they're like, we don't need another animated creature. You know, black and white animated creature. There needs to be something different. Give us something different. And so Walt goes back, and after discussions, he decides, you know what about sound? How about we add sound? And that's exactly what they do. And they release Steamboat Willie on November 18th, 1928. And as they say, the rest is really history.
Oh, because then it put the sound, the picture, and all of it, and then it just started moving forward from there.
Yep.
Wow.
The museum has multiple exhibits that walk visitors through different times in Walt Disney's life. Learn how Walt raised animation to an art, transformed the film industry, tirelessly pursued innovation, and created a global, distinctively American legacy that continues to influence and inspire.
Well, this is the Snow White room. Is that the secret that I wasn't supposed to?
Yeah, you kind of let the cat out of the bag.
Well, that was the gamble?
This is the big gamble that Walt takes right after, you know, they finish innovating and working with Silly Symphonies. And actually, the main reason that they decide to do a feature-length animated film is not just a creative reason, but it's also an opportunity for them, because the Depression has hit at this point in the United States. The shorts that they're making have gotten very expensive. The theaters are really not, you know, requesting them at the same rate, because they rather show 2 features back to back. And so they decide, you know what, let's do it. Let's shoot this film and just go for it.
Yeah, and they were a little concerned if people would actually watch a cartoon or an animation for an hour and a half.
Because, you know, an animation up until this point wasn't something that really evoked a lot of emotion or a lot of feeling. And so, you know, Walt felt that his team was ready. Although his team wasn't as big as he needed. So one of the first things he had to do was to hire people. And he starts basically recruiting men to do the work. And a lot of them end up coming to the studio, some with art backgrounds, some with no art backgrounds.
So he had to train them.
So he trains them, so he starts a school. So he starts an art school with a Chouinard art instructor, comes in to basically teach his guys. And so he starts hiring people, and at one point it becomes so full at the studio that they're working elbow to elbow. There's really not a lot of space to move around. Walt is not a big fan of it, but the animators love it. They love it. They think it's a real creative melting pot.
Get that Microsoft thing going.
Yeah, and they can feed off each other, and they're learning, and they go to work. And one of the first things that happens with Snow White is that the story becomes the center of the entire film. If you don't have a story, you're not going to have a film. That's going to be the core, and it's going to stay like that from now on. All the future films that they make, story will be king.
As you progress through this fascinating museum, you will learn how the creator of Mickey Mouse, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disneyland, and much more was a risk-taker whose artistry, imagination, and vision influenced popular culture through animated and live-action films, television programs, theme parks, and new technologies.
Here it is, an aerial view, and it's a model of Walt's Disney, right?
Well, yeah, we call it the Disneyland of Walt's imagination because it's not Disneyland at any one specific time. It represents everything that Walt was involved in during his lifetime, because he never saw the Pirates of the Caribbean or the Haunted Mansion completed, but he was very involved in the early work.
Yeah, this is impressive. People come here and they just sit here and just, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
I mean, there's so many little things that move.
Yeah, Small World. We've got the, you know, obviously Adventureland.
The teacups.
There's a Matterhorn.
And if you'll see the little train coming around Disneyland, like it still does today.
Yes, just all the things we know in Disneyland. Huh?
It's true. And this model is actually built specifically for the museum by Kerner Optical, which did was the special effects department for Lucasfilm.
You won't want to rush, so make sure you have plenty of time to spend in this awe-inspiring museum. The Walt Disney Family Museum truly encompasses the legacy of a world icon.
And you know, Walt always used to say it all started with a mouse.
That's right.
But we like to say it all started with Walt.
It did. It did it, and his family, and that's what this museum is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And just telling the whole story, and people can make up their own decisions.
That's right.
For who he was.
Well, thanks so much. It was an amazing tour. I mean, is there more? Or?
Well, we have the last gallery.
The last gallery?
Last.
Wow, and just the last gallery, which is what?
It's just a recap of everything you've seen, and just to remind you everything that he did and all the lives he impacted. And it's really a good way to sum up everything, because there's so much.
Yes.
So you can just sit here and
just reflect and enjoy.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks so much.
Anytime.
And thank you for having us. It was an amazing tour, and you were an amazing host. Really appreciate it. You know you're great, though.
I try.
Yeah, well, you love what you do, and I can tell.
I do.
And thank you so much for being with us. And until next time, just remember to enjoy.